Top 5 Incredible Smells. Before we start, I would like you to hit that red subscribe button so that you never miss out on any of our videos. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Here are top 5 incredible smells. Number 5. Drugs. Drugs have been used for millennia in their natural form. It is not until the 19th and 20th centuries that we have been convinced to shun them and take medication in a synthesized form by drug companies. Most of us would probably not recognize the smell of a drug if it hit us in the face, except perhaps marijuana, as few people have had a chance to not inhale that at least once. Here is a list of common drugs and their odors. Opium. This is a sweet, slightly burnt marshmallow scent when it is smoked. Heroin. Burning heroin releases a very strong smell of vinegar. The higher the quality, the less the odor, but all forms will smell to a certain degree. It smells this way because heroin is produced from opium in a method that leaves behind vinegar as a waste product. It is the vinegar smell that drug dogs are seeking. Number 4. The Titanic. In the early hours of the morning of April 15, 1912, the immense body of the Titanic, rent in two, plummeted to its grave on the ocean floor. More than 1,300 souls were lost that night. Fresh varnish, paint, and newly sawn wood were the initial smells that greeted a passenger aboard the ship. In those days, paint was still made with lead and contained high amounts of linseed oil. There would have been the smell of smoke from the coal-driven engines, and on that fateful night, the wonderful smells of roasting duck, lamb, and beef, all of which were on the first-class menu. That same year, the famous French perfume house Guerlain had just released Le Heure Bleu, the bluish hour. Velvety, soft, and romantic, it is a fragrance of bluish dusk and anticipation of night, before the first stars appear in the sky. It was expensive and in high demand and would have certainly been smelled by a lot of women on the first-class deck. The fragrance can still be bought today, and there is no denying that it still has a quality that brings to mind that fateful night. But at 11 p.m. on April 14, 1912, another smell began to appear, a mineral odor with a metallic edge. It was the smell of an iceberg. Number 3. Ancient Egyptian temples. I have a passion for ancient Egypt. As a teen, I couldn't get my hands on enough books about ancient civilization. I taught myself to read basic hieroglyphics. I studied the names of all the gods, and I even determined to one day move to Egypt and restore the pharaonic dynasties of yesteryear. My dream of becoming the next king of Egypt didn't come to pass, but I never lost my fascination for the place. I'm ashamed to admit that I have still yet to visit. If you have been to a Catholic church, you probably know the scent of frankincense and myrrh, for they are the main ingredients in the most commonly used church incense. The ancient Egyptians used the same resins in their temples, so it was the penetrating scent of incense that most likely met you upon entering the place. And again, like our churches, the Egyptians filled theirs with flowers. The most common were lotus blossoms and other marsh plants and reeds. The scent of the lotus is extremely sweet, like fruit. And while that sickly sweetness would have dominated, the dank marsh plants would have added an underlying scent of water and dirt. Other scented flowers present would have been jasmine with its hypnotic fecal odor of indole, sweet blossoming roses, and the intense scent of fresh mandrake, redolent of dry tobacco. The next likely odor of the temple would be that of food, offerings to the pantheon of gods. Commonly, these were freshly baked bread and roasted meats. At this point, you can imagine that the temple would have something of the scent of Christmas time in a modern country village. At some times of the year, milk, herbs, and vegetables were offered, and after a short time, these would have lent a faintly sour and rotten scent to the whole. Number 2. The Holocaust. In 1942, the Jewish ghettos were disbanded by the Nazi government and mass deportations by train began. There were no stops for toilet breaks, and there were no amenities for those who were ill except for one bucket in the corner which, needless to say, very quickly was rendered unusable. The entire journey from city to camp was drenched in the stink of vomit, feces, and urine. The foulest aspects of man's animal side were witnessed, within and without the trains. For those in the camps who were witnesses to the cremation of bodies, the smell was unlike anything they had smelled before. When meat is cooked for eating, we smell simply the searing of flesh. Not so when a human body is burnt. The sickening smell experienced daily by those in the camps would have been compromised primarily of a beef-like scent from burning flesh and a pork-like smell from human fat. This would be accompanied by the noxious odors of sulfur from burning hair and nails, a coppery metal smell from the burning blood and iron-rich organs, and spinal fluid which burned with a sickly sweet musky odor reminiscent of perfume. It is a smell so thick it can almost be tasted. And then there was the aftermath. American GIs arriving to liberate the camps claimed they could smell the stench long before they saw them. The smell covered the entire countryside for miles around. One private said, disease, typhus, dysentery, and tuberculosis was universal. The crematory had been operating around the clock. The stench of death and of piles of human excrement was overpowering. Number 1. Sanctity. Saints have a smell. Well, some saints do. The odor of sanctity, osmogenesia, or odor di santità as the Italians say, is the opposite of odor di zolfo, the stench of death, sulfur. This odor of holiness comes in a variety of different forms. For some saints, it is a smell that begins to exude from their body after death, often combined with incorruptibility. For others, it is a sweet fragrance that they unexplainedly emit during their lifetime. And for some, it is in the form of sweet-smelling liquids that leak from the tomb housing the saint's corporeal remains. One of the most striking stories of the odor of sanctity is that of Saint Simeon Stylites, died AD 459, who lived 37 years atop a pillar with his skin slowly rotting beneath the objects of mortification he wore. The saint was said to exude the smell of perfume. Tragically, the pillar upon which he stood was destroyed by a missile in Aleppo in 2016. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video.